I think that it was a wake-up call to a lot of people. And, you know, if that had to be me and I had to be that guy and this had to be the thing that happened, so be it. You know, I have so many people around me, and, you know, I was a kid graduating high school, going off to college, really trying to find myself and really what my purpose was. And it's so clear to me now, if this accident was the reason that people's perspectives of lives changed, you know, then maybe this wasn't an accident. Maybe this just was meant to be.
If I could describe Hal in one word, it would be stubborn. And that goes back to when he was little. No matter what he did, or, you know, he was just gonna do it. And he'd even cry about it until he got it right, you know. That's how I would describe him.
Him and I were really close when we were growing up. Like, my mom, she would buy us the same clothes and stuff like that. She, you know, I always looked up to my brother, and I always wanted what he wanted. Like, he was my role model because he was 3 years older than me.
Hal was the kid that everybody knows, whether it's because he's walking around school with his gigantic headphones on or blaring his music in the parking lot of our high school at an outrageous level where everyone can hear him, or whether he's just that simple guy that you like to talk to. Everybody knew who he was.
He was one of those kids who always seemed to go for it, always took that extra step, always wanted to know more, do more.
In the classroom, he would be friends with fellow athletes, but then he was also reach out to, say, speech and debate students, theater students, every student that you can think of.
When we were younger, he loved Thomas the Train, so everything was Thomas the Train. And that was him, you know, just head first right into it all. Then, you know, later he got into Ken Griffey Jr. baseball. And then he wanted to learn how to do a backflip off his pool. He got that down. And when he did it, he went all out.
It's just amazing when I think about his personality, when I think about, you know, what a positive person he was. He was such a dynamic speaker, and people really gravitated towards him.
I would want people to understand that you never know. You never know that's gonna happen to you. Of course, you always hear about it. You always hear about it. You never, ever think it'll be your best friend, let alone yourself. Hal was never the person you would expect that to happen to.
And I remember the day, and it will be a day that I never forget.
On July 26, 2007, Hal Hargrave Jr. was involved in an accident that would change his life forever.
911 emergency, what are you reporting?
We're coming to Las Vegas, and a trailer went out of the road, and he needs the ambulance.
He needs an ambulance. The vehicle ran off the road. Where on the freeway are you? I need a location.
Hello?
This is 911. I need a location. She's reporting an accident, but I don't have a location.
Let's see. Well, we're on Highway 15.
I need to know where on the 15 the accident is.
We're east of Barstow, but we're not as far as Yermo.
I remember the night before, and you know, all these things start dancing through your mind. We were at the Claremont Club, and they had a concert. They always have a summer concert series on Wednesday nights. Remember, Hal had some buddies come up that wanted him to go out that night and hang out, and he says, "No, I gotta be on the road early in the morning." And I remember Lori asking me that night, "Where's he going tomorrow?" And I said, "He's driving to Las Vegas." And what's he driving? He's driving one of our big stake beds loaded with equipment, taking it up to some cruise in Las Vegas. And, you know, she is the mother that worries, as most mothers do. She said, "Is he capable of doing this?" I said, "He's done it for the last 2 summers, babe. He'll be fine." And before I pulled up, to pick up Lori. As I was driving frantically there, all I could think about was what I told her: he'll be fine. Don't worry, he'll be fine.
For some reason or other this morning, I felt kind of uncomfortable with what he was doing, so I remember getting up and making sure that he got up on time and that he was, alert enough to go out and drive. And I remember Hal telling me specifically, "Mom, I'm a big boy now. I'll be fine. Don't worry about it. I know what I'm doing." So I kind of watched Hal get out to his car, and still feeling a little bit uneasy, I went to bed.
It was early in the morning. I was ironically on the phone with my insurance man, talking about our upcoming renewal for our liability and auto insurance. Another call came in on the other line. Somebody else got it and came over the intercom and said, "Hal, there's an emergency on the other line." So I hung up with Rick, picked it up, and fielded a phone call from a CHP officer that said that Hal, my son Hal Jr., had been in a terrible accident outside of Barstow. And I instantly asked him, "Is he okay?" And he said, "No." I said, "Is he alive?" And he said, "For now."
About 6:30 in the morning, I got a phone call from my husband. I remember picking up the phone, and he was a little frantic and said, "There's been a horrible accident." I remember jumping up and going, "Oh my God, what happened?" And he just goes, "I don't know, but we need to go up to Barstow."
So I immediately hung up and just sprung right into my car and drove towards my house, which fortunately was on the way towards Barstow. Picked up my wife, who was pacing outside as I pulled up. I don't even know how much I slowed down, but she hopped right in and immediately was on the phone with the CHP, trying to get more information.
California Highway Patrol.
My son was just in an auto accident on the 15 in Mineola.
Can I get your name?
Lori Hargrave,
And how old is your son?
17.
We were traveling at a high rate of speed. Before we knew it, we were between Victorville and Barstow, and the CHP finally called back, said that Hal had been life-flighted to Arrowhead Regional.
Hello?
Hi, is this Lori?
Yes.
Hi, this is Jeannie at the Highway Patrol. Mercy Air has taken him to Arrowhead Regional Hospital.
Arrowhead Regional Hospital.
That's in Colton.
I took that as a sigh of relief, because for probably the last 5 minutes up until that point, I thought he was dead. I thought they weren't calling us back. And my fear of pulling up to the scene and seeing my son in a truck that I put him in, I didn't know if I was going to be able to handle that.
I kept looking at my husband going, "Do we know he's alive?" And he just said, "I don't know." The last words of the CHP officer was, "For now." And he really couldn't give us a clear answer whether he was going to make it or not, but he just said, "You better just get up here."
When they called and said he had been life-flighted, I instantly told Lori. She was upset, and I said, "He's still alive." They wouldn't have put him in this helicopter and have flown him to Arrowhead Regional had he died. Turned around, still remember, right at Stoddard Wells Road. I needed gas. And, just that point, time stood still while I pumped gas, enough gas. Figured I needed 3 gallons to get me down to Colton Arrowhead Regional. Put that in, and Lori was yelling at me the whole time, "Faster, faster, faster."
I was actually almost relieved when we got a phone call back from the CHP officer stating that we needed to turn around and go the other direction, because I realized that once I got up to that scene of the accident, that maybe that wouldn't have been a good thing for me to see, because I knew it was pretty bad, because they did mention something about him being in a rollover, and I had horrible thoughts about what it would look like.
I still remember pulling up to the emergency room and seeing right outside the emergency room doors, the tarmac where the helicopters land. There was only one helicopter there, and the blades were still turning. They were slowing down. And I knew we were getting there about the same time he was, and that felt good. So we rushed in Arrowhead Regional. It was very tight on security. And I remember Lori just blowing by security and running down the emergency room corridor. And it felt good that I knew Lori was going to be at his side, because at this point we still didn't know where he was at in being critical. We didn't know if he had died, but knowing that she was going to be able to be by his side at this point was comforting.
Went to one of the nurses at the nurses station and just said, my son, was just in an auto accident and I believe he's here. And they said, well, let us bring you into this room. I remember going into this small, kind of dark, private room, and I thought, well, this isn't a good thing, because I worked in a hospital before, and I knew that when they put you in a room like that, that it's typically a pretty bad thing.
I was able to see Hal after probably 10 minutes of paperwork. I was able to go into the emergency room. He was conscious, barely. He was very bloody, very scared. I could see it in his eyes. Barely able to talk, and very relieved to see his mom and I.
And I remember tears coming down his eyes, and he looked scared. I'm sorry, you guys. And I remember looking at him and he looked just helpless. He was just sitting there. And he looked at me, and all he could say was, Mom, I'm really sorry.
My brother-in-law, and they say God works in mysterious ways, happened to be in town, and he is chief medical staff at Flagstaff Memorial in Flagstaff, Arizona, and he just happened to be in town visiting. This time he was at the hospital with us and was by our side and was able to answer all those questions that maybe somebody didn't want to tell us.
I remember turning to my brother and said, this isn't good, is it? And he just looked at me and he just goes, I'm so sorry. I would have never, ever thought this would happen to my own nephew. And I remember just those words in the look on his face that this was going to be a really bad thing. And I remember us just kind of going, so what does this mean? And the doctor said, well, it looks like your son might be paralyzed. And I think that was the worst thing that a parent could hear.
As Hal rolled his truck a total of 4 times, the roof of the cab collapsed in on him, breaking his neck at the C5, C6 level, leaving him a quadriplegic. He has a 1 to 3% chance of ever walking again.
And I think, looking back, this was a moment for me as a dad that I'll never forget. That it was 8 o'clock on a Thursday morning, and he had only rolled a truck an hour and a half earlier, and the waiting room was completely full of friends and family. An hour and a half after our son was in this accident. And when we needed the support most, it was there right from the beginning.
We knew that Hal had gotten in an accident. We knew it was really bad. We had no idea if he was going to be alive, if he wasn't, if we'd ever see him again.
I kind of got butterflies in my stomach because I didn't know what was about to happen. And I walked in with my mom, and I walked into the room and I saw him, and I immediately turned my head quickly. I couldn't look at him. I mean, he had a breathing tube and a halo on, and you know, it was hard to look at. It's hard to see my brother like that. He was all bloody, and I couldn't look at him. I immediately turned my head and put my face on my mom's shoulders, crying in her arms.
People were slowly going in, mainly family members at this point, and you know, finally I got a chance to go in, and it was 2 at a time, and no one else came in with me. So I just went in there, and they put him into a halo, and he was sleeping at the time where they had given him, he was heavily medicated, but he was barely breathing. The halo was screwed into his head, and it was the closest feeling of death, and I was overwhelmed. He looked dead. It was unreal, unimaginable to see him in this state, helpless. Both of us. He laid there, and I had to just look over him, and I didn't know what to do. I was too afraid to touch him, too scared to say anything. So I just walked out of the room.
After several days in the intensive care unit at Arrowhead Regional Medical Center, Hal was moved to Casa Colina Rehabilitation Center in Pomona, California, where he would begin his recovery.
I'd received a phone call from a family friend when I was at a conference that Hal's son, little Hal, had been involved in a motor vehicle accident, and he was being transported, and it looked as if he had a spinal cord injury. He wasn't moving his arms or his legs. What to do at that point in time was really to find out more information. Where was the level of injury? What happened? Were there associated fractures or broken bones? Was he going to get a Solution Medrol protocol? How to prevent a blood clot in his lower extremities from going to his lungs? Some of the early complications that patients with spinal cord injury face. I did speak directly to his trauma team about a day and a half after his admission, and it was quite clear that he had a spinal cord injury at the C5-6 boning level, and that his neurologic level was yet to be determined, but he was looking as if he was a C5, what they call quad or quadriparesis or tetraparesis. So in other words, he was having difficulty moving his arms and legs.
At the Reeve Irvine Research Center, we're treating all injuries of the spinal cord. Low injuries in the thoracic region that control your guts. Higher injuries in the cervical region, like Hal's, C5, C6 type of lesions, where that level of the spinal cord is controlling arm function. An injury there renders the arms dysfunctional and everything below the injury dysfunctional.
Cervical spinal cord injury, the spine's divided into the cervical spine, which is basically in the neck area. And so when you hear the word C, the C stands for cervical. Your thoracic or your rib cage is T-spine, and then L-spine is lower, your low back, and then sacral or S is the very distal portion of your spine. So the higher the level of the injury, like cervical spine, it's numbered C1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So neurologic levels are C8, C1 through 8. So the higher the level, the more that's affected. Everything below the level, C5 or C6, is going to be affected. That's your arms, your abdomen, your lungs, your bowel, your bladder, your legs, your toes. So you have to basically teach that individual with a new spinal cord injury everything about their new body.
In order to restore the spinal cord back to a functioning state again, we've got to replace the tissue that was lost. And we've got to induce growth of the spinal cord that was severed. Stem cells offer a tremendous opportunity for that replacement and for that growth. Stem cells secrete growth factors that cause branching, sparing of tissue that otherwise would have been lost. The stem cells also can replace the tissue that was lost, so that we can actually make them into spinal cord tissue to transplant into a region of the spinal cord where that tissue is lost. The idea, replace the tissue that's lost and nurse the environment to keep it healthy, stop it from degrading, and lessen the severity of the injury. The spinal cord field is at a real turning point where over the next few years we are going to see a number of treatments move from the bench to the bedside. It's a very exciting time, and it underscores the need to now marry the research efforts of professors like myself with rehabilitation efforts, experts who know how to move the body in the right way to coax our transplants to benefit the patient.
Understanding what a C5, C6 spinal cord injury was, I knew what kind of challenge I was up for, and that my upper body for most of my life is going to be very impaired, and that being my triceps and being able to use my arms to be more functionable around the house, be more functionable in therapy, and more importantly in my everyday life was really going to inhibit what I do.
And his next step in recovery was at a facility called Project Walk in Carlsbad. And it's a recovery center for spinal cord injuries. And they use a recovery method based on exercise.
The reason we're doing things with Hal today is because he started right after he got out of rehab. I mean, he started as soon as he could. So we were able to create, I'll use words that people recognize. We were able to create spasms, and we got them early enough that we actually can turn them off. So Hal can actually create energy through his body, creating movement, and then he relaxes and it goes away. So a lot of spinal cord injuries are healing, but without stimulation. So their body becomes dysfunctional. His body is healing in a functional manner so that the spasm and tone that a lot of people suffer with, he doesn't have. He creates, it goes away. He has, I wouldn't say functional control yet, but it's getting there. That's all because he started right away. If he was healing sitting in his wheelchair, think about it, he's just sitting in his chair all day long, his body would get tighter and stronger without any proper stimulation which way to go. So we're teaching his nervous system everything it needs to know to improve.
A big part of our treatments is rehabilitation. Without rehabilitation, there's really no way that a spinal cord transplant of a stem cell population can really work. If we put stem cells into a spinal cord that's quiescent, it's quiet, it's sitting in a chair, it's not moving legs, it's not moving the body parts, it's really unlikely to sense the body and know what to do. It takes a very sophisticated rehabilitation regime in order to pair with the stem cell transplant to tell that transplant what to do. Muscles need to move, bone needs to bear weight, vessels need to carry blood. All of these things are affected, they're benefited by rehabilitation.
It's simple, it's use it or lose it. You cannot get better doing nothing. I can't get in shape by sitting in a chair. So you have to move and you have to try. And like I said, the worst case is you're gonna be healthier.
There's many points throughout the day where I wouldn't say I get frustrated, but there's certain things that in my previous life where I was able-bodied that maybe I took for granted. Little things like getting up out of bed and giving myself a shower and going to the bathroom, things like that I really just didn't maybe necessarily take for granted. I just didn't give enough credit for that I was able to do these things. And now that I'm in a chair and I need help from my mom and my caregiver getting up out of bed and taking a shower and having them put on my catheters and do my bowel program, I have a much greater appreciation for it now than I ever did before. And you know, it's the little things now that, you know, you go throughout the day and you're like, wow, that was just second nature before, and now it's like, it's a big deal. It starts when I get out of bed and all those little things that maybe I can get worked up about and about not being able to do self-sufficiently. You kind of see past those things knowing that you have things to look forward to. You have goals to achieve still. And is this about walking? Ultimately, yeah, it is, but it's far bigger than that. It's about a community, it's about friends, it's about family, it's about support, it's about becoming independent, but more importantly, it's about becoming comfortable with yourself again.
Hal's accident has affected his entire family. Here's a look at what the Hargraves go through on a daily basis. The Hargraves' day begins at 7:30 a.m. when their caregiver, Cherie, arrives. She helps Lori by preparing Bella, Hal's younger sister, for school and performing some of the household chores. It's 7:45 a.m. Time for Hal to get out of bed and into the shower.
Ready? Get up.
One, two, three. Yeah, I got up. My mom and Sheree got me up, and now my mom's gonna get me in the shower today. We'll be going to Project Walk, so spend a couple of hours down there and then come back home and take care of some things and, you know, have hopefully a safe trip down there.
So, you know, a lot of people don't realize that just the little simple things of brushing your teeth every day, Hal needs the help because he doesn't have his fingers. So we do this every morning and night to make sure that his teeth stay healthy. And so far we've done a good job, as his dentist says.
So right now I'm giving Hal his morning bowel program. And since Hal is not able to go on his own, I have to help him stimulate his rectum. The normal spinal cord injury bowel program could last anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. Hal and I are experts, so we can get it done in about 15 minutes. So about 5 days a week, Hal has to get up early, so his body has adjusted to getting up earlier and having his morning bowel program done first thing.
I don't think a lot of people realize that a lot of the times during this injury, if it's a husband taking care of a wife, or a wife taking care of a husband, or, you know, a mom taking care of her son, people get burned out really easily, but luckily for my mom and I, we have a pretty good relationship and we can joke around and keep it light. And I mean, hopefully I'm not speaking for her, but she hasn't got burnt out. I know she has her mornings just like I do, where she doesn't want to get up and want to come do certain things, but you know, she never complains about having to get me out of bed. She just kind of does it without question, and she's been great to me that way. It's tough having your family members take care of you. A lot of the times you'll see families hire full-time caregivers for the morning to help, you know, their loved ones get out of bed, just because it takes its toll. And at a point, you have to draw the line where you're a wife and not a caregiver anymore, a mom and not a caregiver anymore.
And most families that can have caregivers too will have two, or they'll go they'll have one in the morning and one in the evening. Or if you talk to most people, they will have gone through 4 or 6 in the first couple of years before they find somebody compatible with them and their families. We have 10 minutes to get out of the house, and most people need about an hour and a half to do all this. Hal's suppository went in at 7:30 this morning. We got him in and out of the shower. And this is a typical routine for us every day, at least 5 days out of the week. This is our normal routine. So Cherie usually works on the upper half of the body while I'm putting on Hal's catheter. Hal does not require a an indwelling catheter, nor do I ICP him. This just goes right into this bag here that we attach to his leg. So throughout the day, Hal gives him a little independence. Since Hal has no hand dexterity, he'd be unable to catheterize himself.
After we get me dressed, we'll just get me up in my chair and then transfer me. We'll have Cherie do my hair, and then we'll transfer me right into the car and get going down to Project Walk. Gotta kind of push a little bit on time.
Hal has the capability of bridging,
2, 3,
which most C5 level injuries don't have. So that really helps us when we dress him. Since he's able to bridge, we can pull up his underwear and his shorts.
Ready, 1, 2, 3.
It is now 8:33 a.m., and Hal has completed his morning routine. He begins his 1.5-hour, 85-mile trip to Project Walk in Carlsbad, California, which he makes 3 days each week. Over the course of a year, Hal travels approximately 27,000 miles just for physical therapy. That is about $4,800 in fuel costs alone. It's 10 o'clock a.m., and Hal arrives at Project Walk. He heads in to meet up with Ted Darzinski, his first trainer of the day. Over the past 3 years, with the assistance of Ted and other trainers at the center, Hal has shown significant improvement. During this time, he has regained some mind-muscle control, allowing him to initiate some quadricep movement. Each session at Project Walk lasts for 3 hours at a cost of $100 per hour. That equates to nearly $47,000 annually. According to the University of Alabama National Spinal Cord Injury Statistical Center, the average first-year expenses for an SCI injury is $236,000. Average first-year expenses for quadriplegics is $517,000. Average lifetime costs for quadriplegics age of injury 25 is $1.78 million.
So just got done with the good workout here at Project Walk. I had a really good day, had a lot of good movement. My glutes were really good, my quads were firing. Had some really good bridges, but we're gonna head back to Claremont, and we're gonna go stop by Casa Colina and see a few new SCI patients that the foundation will probably eventually end up helping, and just need some words of encouragement.
After his intense physical therapy routine, Hal is off to Casa Colina, where he will meet and give words of encouragement to a new SCI patient. Along the way, he stops by to watch his sister Haley practice for an upcoming beach volleyball tournament.
So we're just getting here to Casa Colina. We just came from my sister's volleyball practice. Had a long day at Project Walk and went and watched my sister's practice, but we're coming here, and I'm coming to visit a new patient that just got hurt diving into the ocean at Newport Beach, and he got hurt at the same spot as my friend Brian Goodwin, and we're just here to talk to him, give him words of encouragement, and tell him about the foundation, and that if he needs help, we're here to help him.
After a full day of hard work, Hal comes home to relax and have dinner with his family, a nightly event in the Hargrave household.
1, 2, 3. Now, Hal at the time of his accident, he lost about 45 pounds, and I think he's gained probably about 35 of it back too. So I'm doing this so that I can keep the pressure sores off of Hal's bottom. He's a little more comfortable sleeping on his side. There's a pretty high incidence of bed sores with people with spinal cord injuries because they're unable to move by themselves. So it's real important that you check the skin daily for any, you know, red marks that they could have occurred during the day. It doesn't take long for them to get, you know, redness. You know, just check for swelling and just making sure his skin is clear of, you know, new bed sores.
Good night, Hal.
Good night, Bill.
All right. Good night, Hal.
So yeah, this is a day in the life of what it's like to live and be out on a day-to-day basis with an SCI patient, and it gives you a good look at not just what I and everyone else that have SCI goes through, but what a family, community, and friends that rally around the individual go through to help, you know, be their caregiver and stuff like that. So just gonna get a good night's sleep now. See you later.
On the 3rd anniversary of Hal's horrific accident, he returns to the scene and tells us in his own words exactly what happened.
You know, it was 6:30 in the morning. There's the sunrise coming up over those hills, and this was just kind of what it looked like. And you have this guardrail right here. There's a tire tread right here. I tried to swerve to the right. I went off over into these bushes, and I tried to bring it back. And when I did, I hit the lip of the pavement, and it shot me back across over into the middle of the freeway over here. And once the tires hit, the truck just started flipping, and it rolled 4 times, and then it landed upright. And, you know, I just kind of sat there in the middle of the road, you know, kind of hoping people would show up. You know, I was sitting in this intersection fighting for my life. In the blink of an eye, my life flashed before me, and it was almost like, am I gonna live? Am I gonna be able to say bye to the people I love? And the first thing I saw, I couldn't really turn my head, but I could see out of the corner of my eye a Mexican family who had just pulled up, and they were yelling at me for help, asking me if I was okay, and I just remember yelling at them saying, "Get help." I could just see the expression on their face, and I kind of knew it wasn't good. We're pretty much staring exactly where the truck would have been, and we're probably parked in what the perspective was of the ambulance and all the people who pulled up on the scene and what they would have been looking at. It's just kind of surreal to be back here. I'm kind of like replaying it in my head right now, and I can visually just see and remember spinning and rolling and the truck turning and everything happening so quickly. Being here, it's eerie, but it's almost like a bittersweet feeling to me. A lot could have happened that day. For one, I could have and should have been dead, first and foremost. Take that away, I should have had a brain injury. I don't. And if I can affect hundreds and maybe thousands of people's lives through this, then it was all worth it to me. Walking or not, it's all worth it to me.
During Hal's time in recovery, he met with many other SCI patients witnessing firsthand their own financial and emotional experiences. Once medical coverage has been exhausted, most SCI patients are forced to look for other sources of money, such as fundraisers, to continue their treatment. Others simply discontinue due to lack of resources. Hal saw a need to help where he could and started the Be Perfect Foundation.
We started the Be Perfect Foundation really because my son had met a guy at Project Walk, and after his conversation with him, and he found out that this young man was not going to be able to come back.
It was December It was right before Christmas. And one of his friends, Brian O'Neill, he told Brian he would see him after Christmas, after the holidays. And Brian said, "No, buddy, I'll see you later than that." And Hal said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Yeah, I'm about ready to lose my house. And it's about putting food on the table. And so I'll see you after I raise some money." And I was with him that day, and I said, "Hal, you ready to go?" And he said, "No, I'll be right back." And I saw him wheel himself up to the receptionist at Project Walk and said, "The Be Perfect Foundation will pay for Brian O'Neill, and he will be here after the holidays." That's how it all started.
The day that he came back from Project Walk, when he said he was going to start this foundation, I was so proud of him, because he was stepping up from this injury, and he wasn't being depressed anymore. He was trying to make something out of it, and it's great that something so bad could turn into something good.
While Hal was in Coscolina, he wanted to help other people already, even though he was still in quite the situation. He automatically just wanted to help other people. He came up with the idea for the Be Perfect Foundation, told his dad, and they just went for it.
And so many people care and love for him that I believe a lot of this foundation wasn't out of sorrow, out of pity, which is what he never ever wanted. It was out of love and compassion and understanding of what could be done about this whole situation.
So what Hal's foundation is doing is really the cutting edge of rehabilitation. Getting rehabilitation out to people who need it right now to benefit their lives, but also to those individuals who are researching human rehabilitation in order to apply it in concert in a clinical setting with stem cell treatments and other treatments for spinal cord injury.
It's a healthy foundation. It's about activity-based therapy. It's about preparing young men and women who have had a spinal cord injury for what the future may hold, for a lifestyle that is more healthy. When you're spinal cord injured, and let's say you're immobile, you're in a wheelchair, I think an important message is to be active.
The Be Perfect Foundation is great because they don't use the traditional model of, well, sorry, you have a spinal cord injury, there's things that you're never going to be able to do again, so we'll just work with the things that you have. Instead, they give you hope that you can move past, you can do things that you thought you would never be able to do again. And so people who were told that they would never stand and would never walk are standing and walking. And even if it's just a step or 2 steps or from the bed to the door, it's more than sitting in a chair for the rest of your life.
I know everybody needs help, but some do need help more than others. And that's kind of where the line is drawn, is who needs help more than other people. And it's horrible to think of it that way and to tell someone no after they've already lost hope. But I tell you what, it is tough. But right now, I think we have 25 applications that we have to review, and we're only going to be able to help a couple of them because our funds are a little bit lower than expected this year because of the economy.
You know, you look at a great country and say, whoa, it's about money right now. You know, people with money get better. People without money don't get better. Insurance doesn't help. Government doesn't help. But he's changing that. In his way, he's helping people overcome that, and I hope it continues to grow. Because there's 12,000 injuries in this country each year, and most of them don't have the means to help themselves.
For insurance companies that do cover this injury, they're only going to cover about 50 to 55% of the cost. This injury can be in upwards of $2.5 million over a lifetime. You can see that there's a big gap there of money coming out of someone's pocket, where you're talking about a wheelchair that costs $7,000 or therapy being in upwards of $100 an hour. So the money adds up quick, and you know, I like to think my foundation's helped a lot of people, but still not enough.
The foundation had its first annual event, raised $250,000. our first event. And we've had our second and third, and to date we've been able to keep over 60 SCI friends in recovery. We've bought close to 30 wheelchairs for those that cannot afford a wheelchair upon leaving a hospital. We've adapted homes, we've adapted cars, and we're making a huge difference.
We're here at the Claremont Club, located on 19 acres in beautiful Claremont, California. Mike Alpert came over one day and had a talk with my dad and I, and gave us his image and his idea of how Claremont and the Claremont Club wanted to give back. And one of the ways they wanted to give back was to open an SCI studio here at the Claremont Club.
We've started out with a very small area. We actually converted a racquetball court to be able to bring equipment in and service spinal cord injury patients. I think this is a population that throughout our country doesn't get a lot of, necessarily a lot of financial support. After many of these patients get out of acute and phase 1 care, they're on their own.
I hope that the club has brought something to our spinal cord injury clients by giving them a home away from home.
If they live in this area, this is where they need to be coming. If they're interested at least in getting back as much mobility as they possibly can, up into including walking.
Thank you for the Be Perfect Foundation for hooking me up with my new hot rod chair. That's one of the things that falls under the category of things I never thought I'd say. I was really hoping that one day I'd get a really cool wheelchair. Not a lot of people wish for that, but I did, and I got it, from Be Perfect. So thank you.
It's just amazing how much they've helped. Can't say enough thanks, really.
This is Ian McFarland. Ian was injured in July, and he had a traumatic brain injury, but he's recovering nicely. And over the last few months, he's made amazing recoveries, and we just know Ian is going to walk away from here one of these days.
I come in here now and I can feel like I'm helping myself with the help from everyone here, and I'm getting much stronger, and just my days go by better after being here.
All the SCI clients are just unbelievable. They come in and work super hard.
I see physical differences and them being more flexible, having more range of motion, more coordination, more balance. But I also see a hope, a joy, and a happiness that they didn't come in with.
They work hard, but they still have fun. And it's just a great atmosphere to be in. It's just very positive and encouraging.
When I came into the program as a newer instructor, I underestimated all of their abilities. These people are very strong and very able in many ways that we don't give them credit for. Just because somebody is in a wheelchair doesn't mean that they're broken or that I'm going to hurt them or that they're fragile. Of course, they have limitations and certain things that we should watch out for, but they're very capable and they want to be challenged.
The changes that I'm able to see in the spinal cord injury clients are enormous from month to month. Because when you are starting from a very low level, the rate of development is much more dramatic.
I've noticed that I've gotten stronger since I've been here. My balance is getting better.
I was extremely weak. I couldn't do anything on my own.
Before I couldn't move my arms. Now I can move them, and I couldn't transfer. Now I can transfer.
Everything we work on helps me to do things in my everyday life.
There's an energy in them, and just kind of like it's like a positive force, and there's always constant improvement. It might be just little things, but those little things are huge.
We all look forward to when Stephanie from Casa Colina comes to the club and trains us. We look forward to the opportunities to go down to Project Walk and learn more about spinal cord injury clients.
I think it's a really critical program that we have going on at the Claremont Club in conjunction with Casa Colina, because in general these services are very limited. There are very few programs, even in Southern California or across the nation, that address this type of client in their rehabilitation.
My insurance doesn't support me in any way when it comes to stuff like this, so I would be totally without any kind of exercise or therapy if it wasn't for Be Perfect in the Claremont Club.
Care that would not be accessible to me previously because of financial burdens, I don't have to worry about. So I get the care that I need, regardless of my ability to pay.
The people that haven't had a chance to be in this program they're at home. They're more isolated and maybe not as hopeful.
I think if programs like this were not available, I think there would definitely be a negative effect on the clients that we serve. They would have less opportunity, really, to progress themselves with health and wellness. I think they'd be at home more, really being in a more sedentary lifestyle. I think we would see more secondary complications related to spinal cord injury. More healthcare dollars being spent is the bottom line. More visits to the physician. You know, I've had patients in the past where they haven't had these types of resources available, and the only time they get out of the house is when an ambulance comes to their house. And maybe that's their mode of transportation because they have nothing else, so they only leave when there's a medical emergency. They're very isolated from others. They don't get out and interact with their peers anymore. And all of those things really just add up to not as good a quality of life, or not what these people are really looking for.
The spinal cord injury program has brought inspiration to myself personally and to all my trainers.
Seeing the efforts that you put into it and the improvement, the large improvements, huge improvements, is such a rewarding thing.
I want to work harder myself and come up with more creative ways to help them.
It just makes you feel good on what difference I can do for different clients.
When you see people in a wheelchair, you know, you feel bad. You feel like, gosh, how would I feel if I were in their shoes? And you want to be able to do something, and not everybody can. So I feel very privileged to be able to help in any way.
I can say that for me personally and for the trainers, we get a lot more out of the program than what we put into it. I feel that we're the benefactors of having these people in our club and in our lives. We've outgrown our space, and our vision for the future is we want to expand it. We want to have about 3,000 square feet so that we can grow the program and bring in more people.
We have people on a waiting list that would like to get in to the program. Every person that you work with that is a spinal cord injury, they touch your life and your heart too.
There are tremendous, I think, emotional and physical challenges for spinal cord injury people. And so the club's mission was to be able to have a well-care environment and an area for them to come to be fit in just like every other member of the club.
250,000 Americans are spinal cord injured. An average of 12,000 new spinal cord injuries occur each year. Just 4 short weeks after interviewing Desiree Juarez for this documentary, she became a part of these staggering statistics. Let's revisit Desiree's interview.
I would want people to understand that you never know. You never know that's going to happen to you. Of course, you always hear about it. You always hear about it. You never, ever think it'll be your best friend, let alone yourself. The bridge I jumped off of was 60 feet. As soon as I hit the water, they had already called 911 because they knew something was wrong. I guess people jump off that bridge a lot and everyone watches, but no one realizes some of the outcomes of those jumps. It was just a typical Sunday in Sacramento, and About 10 of us wanted to go float down the river because that's something everybody does. Some of the guys were telling me about a bridge that they all jump off of and how it's at Sacramento State and everyone in Sacramento does it. And I figured I'm only here for the summer, why not do it? And when I was on the top of the bridge, of course I was looking down and I was really scared, but everyone comforted me. The boys were like, "You'll be fine." The girls were cheering for me. There was a boat watching me. And when I landed in the water, I knew something was really wrong and I couldn't swim. I could move my arms, but not anything below my waist. I was able to float to the surface, and I was really lucky that there was a boat there that was able to come get me. They lifted me into the boat and I wasn't able to move my legs. They were able to carry me back onto the bridge. And as soon as I was on the bridge, they had already called the ambulance. And I didn't want to go because I didn't believe that anything was wrong with me. When I was in the hospital, I didn't know if I was going to be okay. And I didn't know what was wrong with me, and I was able to move my arms, but I couldn't feel anything below my waist, and it was obviously scary, but all I could think about was Hal and who would have thought that I would be sitting here wheeling next to him. I was here talking about Hal 4 weeks ago, and now I'm the one sitting here. And I still feel like I don't even understand Hal at all.
There is a great need financially for people with this injury. There is a need for people with wheelchairs. There is a need for people with medical supplies, but more importantly, there is a need for people with exercise-based therapy. Our studio here is treating over 15 clients, and we're making people's lives better.
It's probably the greatest thing I've ever been involved in my adult life.
It's never guaranteed that they will get you standing and walking. Just the hope that one day that might be you is enough to keep you moving forward. So that one day, may not be tomorrow, may not be a year from now, maybe 2 years from now, you take your first step. That's the day you've been looking forward to.
For more information about spinal cord injury, the Be Perfect Foundation, and how you can help, please visit www.beperfectfoundation.com.